Hi there, this is Elise Bennin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. Things have changed on LinkedIn, and I've heard all the complaints. Your feed is filled with braggarts. All you get is one measly reaction to a post you spent hours or even days on. And worse, you have a feeling your posts aren't even being seen by the people in your network. Am I right? But don't be depressed. Today's guest, Lynnaire Johnston, she's the author of Linkability. She has solutions to all of these problems. In this brand new episode, she shared how not to get dropped by LinkedIn, which metrics to pay attention to, and the one thing you should be doing instead of posting. That's right. So listen and learn. Hello, Lynnaire. Welcome to the podcast.
Kia ora from New Zealand, Elise. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show. I've been a fan for a long time, so it's great to be able to share a few ideas about my area of expertise, which happens to be LinkedIn. So I help professionals improve their LinkedIn visibility through clear positioning, AI discoverable profiles, and practical platform strategy. So I'm the creator of the Linkability members community. I focus on human-first approaches that make LinkedIn easier to understand and more effective for building credibility, confidence, and opportunity.
Love that. And let's just start with maybe a little overview, because we're talking, it'll be the beginning of 2026 when this podcast gets released. And a lot of people tell me they love LinkedIn. Other people tell me they hate LinkedIn. Just tell me your kind of big take overview of LinkedIn for what you're calling professionals, what I call solopreneurs or creatively self-employed freelancers. Those are my listeners.
Sure. I think it's fair to say that 2025 has seen such an enormous change on LinkedIn that it is now unrecognizable to a lot of people. What has worked for years before no longer necessarily works now. What underpins LinkedIn has changed dramatically with the arrival of AI. And so that requires an entirely new strategy and a new mindset for those of us who are using LinkedIn. So I still believe it is an excellent platform for people in business, solopreneurs, small business owners, coaches, consultants, and those who do work in the B2B space. But as I say, it has now changed. And an example of that is that until recently, posting content on LinkedIn was considered the key strategy. In 2025, that changed, and now it's all about engagement on other people's content. That is the key best practice and key strategy that people should be focusing on in 2026.
And how would you define engagement? I imagine that means commenting, but what else? And maybe how to do commenting?
Yes, it does include commenting, and how you do that is not the way that a lot of people have been doing it in the past, and that is great post or thanks for sharing. If you are going to invest time in engaging on other people's content, which is a key visibility strategy nowadays, then you need to make that content count. You need to share an opinion, ask a relevant question, talk about your own experience in relation to the topic at hand, or in some other way, show credibility, be authentic, but demonstrate or showcase your own expertise. If you are putting the time and effort into commenting, you need to make a good impression. And since LinkedIn has made it possible to see how many views we get on our comments on people's posts, it's been really interesting to see that a lot of people report more views on their comments than on the actual posts. And that has been quite widespread through 2025. But yes, engagement doesn't only include just commenting on other people's posts. I'm talking about engagement in a more holistic or macro sense. So that is how you engage with people who connect with you. How do you follow up with them? How do you start to build a relationship? It's also about how you message people. I'm a firm believer in the power of direct messaging on LinkedIn and the ways that you can do that through video or sending GIFs or GIFs. And voice notes makes a big difference. It helps you stand out. But the things you say, the information that you share, the value that you bring in those engagements through your direct messaging and through your commenting is, I think, the key strategy for people on LinkedIn in 2026.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Although I think how I want to respond is because I'm channeling my clients and the people in the Simplest Marketing Plan and program who, complain to me about the problems with LinkedIn. So for example, I have clients who are all in on commenting, except I can't find anything to comment on. I can't find anything I have an opinion on. And then once they do, I don't know what to say or how do I come up with something meaningful? And I feel like it's easy enough to say, be authentic, be real, give an opinion. And for some people, that's easy. Oh, okay, I get it. I can do it. But for other people, they get paralyzed. So I know there are lots of questions there, but respond to whichever one makes the most sense.
Sure. I agree that for you and I, commenting on other people's posts is easy. That's something that's second nature to us because
Right.
we're in the marketing business. And it is not necessarily always easy for people who, for example, English is a second language. But it's important that people comment on posts that are within their area of expertise. And so if you know your subject well, then it's quite likely you'll have an opinion. You'll certainly have an experience that you can share. And I think too that with the arrival of AI, that most people are now using it in various different ways, but a useful way is to be able to ask it for ideas. And so it would be very easy to just copy the text of a post, put it into your AI and say, I want to write a 50-word LinkedIn comment that showcases my expertise. What can you suggest in terms of ways I could do that? And then that is likely to spark an idea that you can then turn into your own words, or you may choose to have your AI help you to come up with the appropriate words. It does need to sound like you, Elise. I think that's really important, but it's like anything.
It does need to sound like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that there are ways now that we can overcome barriers like that using AI. And so I don't think that's got to be a helpful thing, I think, for people to be able to find a way to be able to do that. But the other part of that question was, where do you find the posts?
Right.
And that is being connected to people who are in your area of expertise, who are active on LinkedIn and who are posting. So you can
And actually, let me just jump in there for a second to make sure it's clear, because part of the struggle, right? If you're a copywriter, and I know you have been a copywriter, and you want to demonstrate your credibility and your expertise in copywriting, you need to find posts, yes, that refer to copywriting, but ideally, I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, the whole point of engaging on LinkedIn is to engage with your prospects who may not be posting about copywriting, for example. Do you see my point?
I absolutely see your point, but we all have life experience. We have experience in different areas apart from our professional expertise. And it's possible to write about different aspects of what you do and the things that you have learned. So, as an example, if I want to comment on a person's post and it is about something that's completely outside my area of expertise, say solar power, for example, I know nothing about the topic. What could I possibly say that could be of value in a post about solar power? Well, I can think about it from my own experience in terms of the cost of other forms of power in my own life. So I'm not necessarily writing about copywriting in that, but I am sharing, making that post more widely distributed by engaging on it. People in my network are going to see that come up as a post that I've liked or commented on. So it increases the visibility for the person that you are writing the comment for. So I think it's not only what you say, it's the act of doing it that shows you are contributing, Elise. And I think a lot of people don't really see that side of it so much. But I think that it was pretty much always possible to find an angle that you can write about. But if you can't, and to be fair, there are times I can't either, I just like the post and move on. I've done my bit. I can't say anything that's really going to add value. I move on. I don't think there's any point in trying to do something that's not going to work. I sometimes comment on the post itself, maybe the technique the person's used or the video the person's added, say something about that from a LinkedIn perspective, and generally in positive terms. I like to see positive things on LinkedIn. I don't like to see a lot of negativity, and I think we're quite lucky the platform is pretty much a benign place to be.
Yeah, that's my experience of it too. Although I do hear complaints from people who say it's either too negative and or people are bragging too much and they can't stand it. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree. Do you know, my pet hate is large selfie images that have got no text and no relevance to the actual post. And so to me, that's just a vanity post. And so what I'll do is I'll just, first of all, I won't engage. I'll scroll right on by because you don't want the algorithm to think that you've paid any attention to it. Otherwise, you're just going to see more of those. If something has really annoyed me, then I will unfollow the person. And in each post, there's a 3-dot menu on the top right-hand corner, and you can unfollow the person there, and you can tell LinkedIn you're not interested in that kind of a post. And if you do that over time, that will help drop those kinds of things from your feed. And on the opposite side of that particular coin, people that you do want to hear more from, it's a really good idea to double-click the bell underneath the banner on their profile, because that tells LinkedIn that you do want to see more of their content. But from my perspective, the feed doesn't offer a great deal of value to me. Where I find the posts I want to engage on are in my notifications. Because when you engage on a post, LinkedIn goes, oh, wow, she's interested in that. We'll send her more from that person, and they'll put it in the notifications for me. And that's where I can go to find things I want to comment on.
I think that's a really good point. And it seems like you're also talking about the network. And I hear a lot of people, and these could be kind of interrelated questions, but I hear a lot of people asking, how do I expand my network? And what do I do if the posts I'm putting into the feed aren't getting much engagement? I imagine those two things are connected, right?
They are connected. In fact, everything on LinkedIn is now connected. Elise, has been, as I mentioned, a huge change to LinkedIn. The way that the platform operates has changed with the advent of AI this year, and an engine, people are calling it, called 360 Brew, which means that everything fits together. In the past, your post was just taken on face value. If you added some hashtags or some keywords or tagged some people, then that had a big impact on the distribution of your post. Now, though, LinkedIn is looking at it holistically. It's looking at your profile. It's looking at the post, certainly, but it's reading the post, not just the keywords. It's reading it for understanding. It's looking at your direct messaging, it's looking at your commenting. The whole thing fits together, and it's not single silos as there has been in the past. People would put a lot of emphasis on the algorithm, which doesn't really apply anymore because there is this single engine looking at everything. And so it's a matter of, I think, re-looking at our strategy and what is working for us. Look, yes, organic reach is right down on posts. This in 2025, there's no question. Everybody has suffered from that. But that is not the key strategy anymore. The key strategy is engagement. And you're right to talk about how do you find those kinds of posts. Well, search has changed now too, so that you can start to search for posts that are within your area of interest or expertise, and then potentially comment on those. And I think too that people forget that when there's something in the news, they might be able to find a way to comment on that is maybe within their area of expertise. It might not be. I don't think we always on LinkedIn have to just be talking about what we do. Right. I think we want to come across as well-rounded individuals, and inevitably that means that we want to talk about things that are important to us. So as an example of that, I don't post much in the way of personal material about my family or things that are going on in my personal life. But every weekend I'll do a video about my garden, and I'll link that back to LinkedIn, which is my excuse for doing these. And I put it up at a weekend when I think it's okay to be a little more informal. So during the week, I talk about LinkedIn, and at the weekend, I talk about gardening and LinkedIn. And then that helps people to get to know me a bit better in a bit more of an informal kind of a way. And so I think there are a lot of ways that we're able to reach an audience, because you want to be finding people you have synergies with. And sometimes it's easy because there's something in their profile that you can talk about, or you can reach out to them on the back of. And sometimes it's not quite so easy. But I think that engaging on someone's content is a really good way to break the ice. So then if you want to connect with a person, they already know who you are because they've seen your name in the comment thread on their post. And building connections over time is, I think, hugely important, because those networks of people that we do build are the people who are going to provide the opportunities in the future. Because LinkedIn's superpower is bringing together people from all over the world who, like you and I, may not know each other or ever have the opportunity to meet in person, unless you're planning a trip to New Zealand, then it gives us an ability to be able to meet, to connect, get to know each other. And then for opportunities like this, having me as a guest on your podcast can emerge. And then who knows how it's going to ripple out from there. So there are a lot of things about LinkedIn that are great. Braggarts are not one of them.
And what if the people that you want to connect with are not all that active on LinkedIn, and maybe not even posting at all, so there's no content to engage with? What do you do then?
More difficult, definitely. And there are other ways to reach those people. Often they'll have their email address on their profile in the contact info section, but sometimes they won't either. Mm-hmm. And if people are not active, or if your target market's not active on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn is not where you should be focusing all your efforts. And this is, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know.
But some of the listeners may not realize that.
Okay, so you have to go where your audience is. Mm-hmm. If your prime targets are on Substack, that's where you need to be. If your business works with people who are on Instagram, that's where you need to be. So I don't believe anymore, I did once upon a time, that LinkedIn is the only place that you should be talking about your business on in terms of social media. I think that if you are great on video, or even if you're only mediocre on video like I am, YouTube is a great place to be putting your content so that people can find you. When people are looking for for somebody who does what you do using their AI, you need to be discoverable. You need to be the person who is surfaced by AI as the expert in your particular field. Now, that's very easy to say and a lot harder to do. And it's, again, a mindset shift for most of us who have relied on SEO or Google AdWords or our websites to bring in business for a very long time. But now AI is in that equation as well. So we need to be visible on LinkedIn, certainly, but off LinkedIn too. Many people don't realize that if you are posting content on LinkedIn, so that's just posts, so like videos or images, etc., then those posts stay on LinkedIn. They're not able to be seen by AI. If you're writing articles or newsletters, those are indexed by Google, and so you can be found for those by Google and inevitably then by AI. So in a way, LinkedIn has a moat around it that we need to be aware of. And if we want more people to see us and to know what we do, then we need to think outside the LinkedIn square. Now, I've been on LinkedIn for a decade, and this is the first time in all that time that I felt that way.
It
has
That's
changed.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of often people say, do I really need a website? And I, until very recently, have said, no, your LinkedIn profile can be your starter website, essentially. But based on what you're saying and what is kind of starting to happen, it does seem like the content on LinkedIn is behind the moat or the firewall of the paid platform, basically. And so, or a membership at least, kind of you have to log in order to access it. And the AI can't, or so far can't. And so the idea of having a blog, for example, where you post, or I like content marketing, that's shared on the blog of your target market, maybe their association, or maybe one of the places where those people gather is a good idea. But I will say, yesterday, in fact, one of my clients who's a designer told me that a new prospect found her through AI. She was surfaced as one of the experts in her area, and she had done nothing to make that happen. And I said, well, that's because you have good content on your website, basically. And that's what the AI is looking for. And so, I mean, my take at the moment is you don't actually have to do anything all that different to be surfaced by AI. Just create good content. And that's always been the case.
You're absolutely right. And I agree with your assessment about a website too. I would have thought originally that you could do it all on LinkedIn, but now we need to remember that we don't own LinkedIn. LinkedIn can shut you down overnight. And then that means you've lost everything, all your contacts, all your content, absolutely everything. With your own website, you do own that. That is your domain and your content. And yes, you can add lots of content there. And something that I'm going to be working on over my so-called holiday break is to start looking at my LinkedIn posts, which, as I've said, are private to LinkedIn, to see what might work actually as free content on my website, to make that something that people find of value, and they can then see those posts. A lot of my content is behind a firewall of my membership on my website, and now I've realised that I need to make more of that publicly available if AI is going to find me and surface me as an expert in my field. There's a lot of competition from people who do work similar to me. And I imagine that's the same for a lot of people. So how do I stand out? What can I do that is different? And that is to showcase my expertise through content on my website. So yes, I'm with you. I think a website is still important.
All right, one last topic before we wrap up. And, we should probably do one of these like every quarter just to talk about what's changed on LinkedIn because it does keep changing. But I just want to talk about metrics and analytics a little bit because I have so many clients who are just really depressed. They post something and they get one comment or a couple likes, and that is very demotivating and it makes them not want to post anything anymore. And so I guess my question is, should we care about that? How depressed should someone be by a lack of engagement? And also, like, how important are these metrics and the difference between, impressions versus engagements? Like, what is all of that about?
All right. So the first thing is that there's a big difference between the vanity metrics, which are the impressions, and the metrics that are important, which is the engagement, basically. So impressions are just the number of times that your post has been put into somebody's feed. Now, whether or not that person has seen your post is not represented by that number at all. So it's a vanity metric. It really doesn't tell you anything that is of great use. Members reached is a much better metric to be focusing on if you are looking at the visibility side of it. The engagement side is important. And so there are a few things that you can do, I think, to help that. The first is to comment on other people's posts, because the law of reciprocity says if you comment on someone else's post, they will comment on yours. Well, it's more likely. So definitely you need to be commenting about 5 to 10 times more frequently than you are posting. That's the first thing. The second thing is to make sure that your post is best practice. So that means that you're posting it at the right time of day for your particular audience, that your post follows the usual best practice conventions of how it's laid out and the media that you add to it. You don't need hashtags, by the way, anymore.
And does everything need a graphic?
I think so. Text posts are not doing nearly as well because they don't take up much space in the feed. If you're scrolling your feed, what takes your eye? Images, carousels, and videos, usually. Your text posts can get lost. But conversely, people will often comment on a text post. So you'll get better engagement, but less in the way of views or reach. It's an odd thing. There doesn't seem to be a correlation between the two that I've been able to find. Anyway, it is more important to have people engage on your content because that still affects how many people will see it in the longer run, the visibility of it. Because if you look at your feed, you'll see a lot of things that aren't posted by a first-degree connection, but a second-degree connection has liked it or commented on it, and that is why it is in your feed. So that kind of level of visibility is important. But let's face it, this is LinkedIn. There's no reason to be depressed. What it does, I'm a glass half full person only. So if I see a problem, I like to think, okay, what can I do to fix this? What am I learning from this that means I can do it differently? So commenting on other people's posts is one thing, making sure that I'm posting the right kind of content and that is what people want to read, I think is another.
And actually, let me just interrupt you there because posting the right kind of content, I don't think people understand what that is. And I would think it's different for everyone. But I'm thinking of one person in particular who often posts very substantial, educational, helpful content, but it's the personal two-liner question that actually gets the most engagement. And I'm wondering if you see that kind of disparity as well.
But that's a really great tactic. I really applaud that person for doing that because that brings the audience into the conversation. Because if you've got quite a comprehensive educational piece, sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming for people and they don't really want to say too much in case they show themselves up poorly against the person who's got all the expertise. So asking a question is a great way to involve the audience. So I think that's an excellent tactic.
And it's easier too.
It's got to be a decent question. Obviously.
Yeah.
I think that really does help. So, yeah, would be my suggestion on that one. I think that long form articles and newsletters on LinkedIn are a very good idea, partly because they are indexable, but also because they do show your authority and your credibility in your niche. Plus, they can look fantastic because you can add videos and images and slideshows and tag people and put in little adverts for your business if you want to do that as well. And so I think there is a real value in doing at least some long form content on your profile once a month. Now, that might be a bit of a stretch for some people, and I don't think that would necessarily work for designers, but a lot of your audience are marketers and copywriters. And so that's right up their street, easy for them to do.
But just to be clear, just to be clear, you're talking about articles and newsletters then?
Yes, on LinkedIn.
As opposed to posts?
Yes. Okay. It's another format. Yes. So there are several short form formats, including video, etc. And articles and newsletters are the long form content, which LinkedIn has pretty much had right since the beginning.
Right. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I interrupted you. I don't know if you remember.
No, that is absolutely fine. Fine. It's a complex question, isn't it? Yeah, and it hasn't been made any easier by these big changes on LinkedIn this year. But I just want people to understand that the way AI works is that it is looking to understand who you are and what you do. And so it's taking things in a bigger picture way. You need to be very clear about what it is that you are offering people and your target audience and the benefits that they are going to receive from working with you. Because if you are very clear about that, then it's going to be clear to the AI, and you will be surfaced to the right people on LinkedIn. One other point I wanted to make, though, about posting is repurposing. Now, I've started to use AI a lot for repurposing content in 2025. It saved me hours. And it has meant that I can then take one piece of content, such as an interview like this, and turn it into a variety of other formats. So an article, part of my newsletter, is an image post or a carousel, an infographic, lots of different ways to be able to repurpose your content. So for the person who is demoralized by the fact that their original post on LinkedIn isn't doing well, then that's an opportunity to redo it in a different format because it may be their audience prefers to see it differently. If it's an image post, turn it into a video. If it is a video and not doing well, turn it into an infographic or a carousel. Carousels still do very well on LinkedIn, by the way. So there are, I think, lots of different ways that we can approach this, but it is important for people to realize that reach is down, that we are having to look at this differently, and that engagement really counts much more than posting. So if you have relied on posting for visibility, I think that it's now important to realize that engagement is the key best strategy for 2026.
I appreciate that. And actually, I just wanted to share one thing that I've been doing that has been working really well. And then I'm going to ask you for a baby step of all these things that listeners are hearing. Maybe you can share a baby step of where to get started or which one is simplest to start with. But because I have an email newsletter as well as my LinkedIn content, what I've been doing is creating a post on LinkedIn, and then I link to it in my newsletter to drive traffic over to LinkedIn to get people to engage, and whether it's answering the question or sharing their opinion on something. Do you do that? Do you know any other people who do that? What do you think?
I think it's a great strategy, and you can also do it in reverse. You can do a post on LinkedIn to send people to your blog, Elise. So that kind of interaction, if you like, in your content is a really great way to do that. So what I'll often do is at the end of my post, I'll just put a short line, more resources, and underneath I'll put where people can see it on YouTube, where the LinkedIn article is, where they'll see it on my blog post, where they can go to find an infographic, and I'll put all of those in there as links that people can go to see it in a different format. And that cross-platform referencing, I think, is ideal and is a strategy that we could all be doing more of, particularly if we are repurposing the same piece of content or the same key message in different ways, then giving people options on different ways to be able to find more information about it is a really clever strategy.
Yes, indeed. All right. Sounds like a lot of work, though. So actually, I think actually I want to ask you a variation on the baby step question. Maybe it's similar yet different, but like if listeners can only do one thing on LinkedIn, what should it be?
I should be commenting on people's posts.
Okay, I agree.
Mm-hmm. That's an easy thing to do. If they've got the time, a few minutes spent on LinkedIn every day is much better than doing one big hit every month, just once a month. It's that consistency of showing up day after day, week after week on LinkedIn that really gives you the visibility. LinkedIn will drop you like a stone if you disappear. So it is important to be doing something, to be seen to the platform, to be active. And don't forget, the comments that you make on other people's posts appear on your profile in the activity section. So if someone is looking at you, wants to check you out, maybe because they're thinking of working with you, finding out what you're saying on other people's posts in the comments is a really good way to do that. A little bit of sleuthing that most people don't realize happens or even is possible. But your comments are on your LinkedIn profile.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lynnaire. Tell the people where they can find you online, on LinkedIn, anywhere you want, all the places you want.
All right. Well, very clearly you can find me on LinkedIn, not terribly difficult because of my unusual name. I'm also now on Substack. I've started to look at that as a very interesting platform to be using. Works very differently to LinkedIn. I'm also on YouTube. I have a channel at Linkability NZ. So Linkability is the name of my book and is the name of my business. And so if you go to YouTube, we would really appreciate a subscribe on our channel if video is the way that you like to consume content. And of course, a visit to my Linkability website would be great. So that's linkability.biz. And you'll find increasingly more content there about LinkedIn and how to make great use of it in 2026. And Elise, thank you so much for having me on your show. As I say, I've been a long-time fan, so it's great to be able to have a chat with you in person.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing. And we will definitely do this again.
Lovely. I look forward to it.
Did you get that? If you do nothing else, what's the one thing you should be doing on LinkedIn? That's right, commenting. Lynnaire and I agree that you should even stop posting if you have to and spend your time commenting. A little bit every day is the key to growing your network and building real relationships. And that's where the clients come from, right? So if you want my help, make sure you're signed up for my quick tips at marketing-mentor.com because you won't want to miss what's new in the Simplest Marketing Plan. I am super excited about the improvements we're making to the SMP Plus program because this is the year that you stop starting over and when you go from stop and go to steady flow. If that resonates with you, just go to marketing-mentor.com and sign up for my quick tips and you'll hear all about it. See you next time.